Welcome to my channel. In this video, we will be discussing about aging, family roles, and self-reliance in later life. Aging often changes how people are seen within the family, but it does not affect everyone in the same way. In many households, older men and older women are treated differently, not only because of age itself, but because of long-established family roles, emotional expectations, and social habits. These differences can create feelings of neglect, dependence, sympathy, resentment, or quiet adjustment. Any discussion on this subject must therefore be handled carefully. Broad statements about all men or all women are rarely fully accurate, yet the concerns behind such observations deserve thoughtful consideration. In many traditional family structures, a man spends most of his active years carrying responsibility for income, discipline, major decisions, and long-term security. He may work for decades to educate his children, arrange their marriages, build a home, strengthen the family's finances, and protect the household from instability. During this period, his authority often appears natural and unquestioned, because it is linked to responsibility and provision. However, once those major responsibilities are fulfilled, his social role within the household may begin to weaken. After retirement, reduced income, declining health, or the transfer of family control to the next generation, the same person who was once central to decision-making may start to feel less relevant. In some cases, he is no longer seen as the pillar of the family, but as someone difficult to manage, rigid, irritable, or overly critical. Whether this perception is fair or not, it is a pattern that many families recognize. This shift can be especially painful because the older man may still define himself through sacrifice and leadership, while the family has already moved on to a new structure where emotional flexibility matters more than authority. Decisions he once made for the good of the family may later be re-examined and criticized. Choices made under pressure, with limited resources, or according to the values of an earlier generation, may be judged harshly by children who now view them from a very different social and moral lens. In old age, even genuine achievements may lose their practical value if they are no longer connected to the family's present needs. Older women are frequently integrated into the family in a different way. In many households, they continue to have an active role in caregiving, emotional mediation, rituals, food, grandchildren, and domestic continuity. Because of this, they may receive more visible sympathy or daily engagement. Their relationship with children and daughters-in-law is often shaped through usefulness, emotional proximity, and adaptability rather than formal authority. This does not mean that elderly women always live with dignity or ease. Many face loneliness, dependence, invisibility, and emotional pain of their own. Still, it is true that in numerous family settings, an elderly mother or grandmother may retain a softer form of influence. She may know when to change sides, when to remain silent, when to support her children rather than her husband, and how to preserve her place in the household through emotional intelligence. Such behavior is sometimes interpreted as wisdom, sometimes as strategy, and sometimes as a survival mechanism. When there is a considerable age gap between husband and wife, this contrast may become sharper. The wife may align herself more easily with the son, daughter-in-law, or grandchildren, partly to preserve family harmony and partly to ensure continued care and relevance. This does not necessarily arise from disloyalty. Often it reflects the practical reality that, in later life, survival within a family depends less on principle and more on emotional positioning. Economic independence remains one of the strongest factors in determining how older people are treated. In many cases, respect is not based only on love or gratitude, but also on control over property, savings, land, or inheritance. Those who retain ownership of ancestral property, agricultural land, or financial assets may continue to command attention because their authority is still materially significant. By contrast, those who divide all assets too early in the hope of preventing future conflict sometimes find themselves weakened, dependent, and ignored. This does not mean that withholding property is always the ideal solution. Families differ, and legal, emotional, and practical circumstances must be considered carefully. Yet the underlying point is rational. Older individuals should think seriously before surrendering all financial control during their lifetime. Dignity in old age is closely linked to economic self-protection. Emotional bonds matter, but dependence can expose a person to disappointment. Moments of illness often reveal the hidden emotional structure of a family. Hospital visits, caregiving behavior, and the expressions of relatives can show who is valued, who is feared, who is pitied, and who is quietly resented. Some people observe that when an elderly man is ill, the family response may seem more restrained or procedural, while an elderly woman may receive more open sympathy. This may happen because mothers are often remembered through care and emotional labor, whereas fathers are remembered through discipline, duty, and distance. Still, such observations should not be treated as universal truths. Many fathers are deeply loved and cared for, and many elderly women are neglected. What matters more is the broader insight. Old age exposes the emotional consequences of lifelong family roles. A person who was respected mainly for function may suffer when that function ends. A person who built relationships through emotional closeness may remain more protected. Perhaps the strongest idea that emerges from these reflections is not bitterness, but realism. Old age becomes easier when a person reduces dependency on recognition, repayment, and emotional accounting. If someone spends later life constantly measuring how much was given to spouse, children, or family, disappointment becomes almost inevitable. Sacrifice remembered only by oneself can easily become a source of suffering. A healthier approach is to stop expecting life to return everything in equal measure. This does not mean becoming cold or detached from all human relationships. Rather, it means cultivating inner steadiness, self-respect, moderation, and emotional independence. A person who learns to live without constant expectation is less vulnerable to neglect and less likely to lose peace when appreciation fails to arrive. Self-reliance in later life includes financial planning, personal discipline, emotional restraint, and the ability to accept changing family dynamics without collapsing under them. It also includes letting go of the habit of repeatedly narrating one's sacrifices. Constantly reminding others of what one has done for them rarely produces gratitude. More often, it creates distance. Traditional Indian thought offers an interesting framework through the concept of life stages, including vanaprastha and sannyasa. These stages emphasize gradual withdrawal from worldly attachment and movement toward detachment, reflection, and spiritual focus. Historically, classical formulations of these stages were often centered on men, especially householders transitioning away from worldly duties. In that limited sense, one may say that the traditional ashrama model was framed primarily around male social roles. However, it would not be accurate to claim categorically that no woman in Indian spiritual history ever embraced renunciation or ascetic life. Women saints, seekers, widows in devotional paths, yoginis, and renunciants have existed across traditions, even if they were not always placed neatly within the formal ashrama model. So the wiser conclusion is not that detachment belongs only to men, but that traditional society especially urged men to prepare for the emotional loneliness that can follow the end of worldly authority. That insight remains valuable. Our predecessors understood that the person who spends life in power, responsibility, and possession must eventually learn withdrawal. Without that preparation, old age can become a period of humiliation rather than wisdom. The central message here is not that men are victims and women are privileged, nor that all families are selfish. Such absolute judgments would be unfair and socially irresponsible. The more reasonable conclusion is that aging exposes the structure of relationships in a very direct way. Men who were valued mainly as providers may feel discarded when their practical role weakens. Women who remain woven into emotional and domestic life may continue to receive more sympathy or daily relevance. Property, usefulness, adaptability, and emotional intelligence all influence how old age is experienced. The real lesson is deeper. No one should enter old age unprepared. One must cultivate dignity before dependency arrives. One must protect financial autonomy, reduce emotional expectations, avoid clinging to past authority, and learn to live with detachment, self-respect, and inward strength. Human life remains a process of learning until the end. Old age, then, should not be seen merely as decline, but as the final test of wisdom, the ability to live without demand, without complaint, and without losing one's sense of self. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and share it. Subscribe to my channel for more content on relationships and family, social issues and empowerment, mental health and personal growth, and a variety of other topics.